Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Facebook conversation. My name is Robin White. I am a director of external affairs at AT&T New York, and I am thrilled to introduce this conversation between Amy Kramer, the president of AT&T New York, and Topeka Sam, the founder and head of Ladies of Hope Ministry. We're going to cover a bunch of topics here today. And Topeka, I'll let you take it away.
Sure. Thank you, Robin. Such a great introduction. I appreciate you, and so good to see you again, Amy. Happy to be here. Super excited to talk about corporate social responsibility and its role in the nonprofit world. And so as the founder and executive director of the Ladies of Hope Ministries, our vision, we say, is epic, and it's to end poverty and incarceration of women and girls. And part of that work is to change the narrative. And we change the narrative by bringing to public awareness the things that people who are incarcerated or impacted incarceration go through, right? And so for me, a person who actually lived in a prison, I had the things that I went through during that time, but then it was my family, my mom, my dad, my brothers, my friends, and my community, and the things that they went through that when I came home and while I was inside, and that those narratives are just as important in talking about the effects that incarceration have on our community. And so through the Ladies of Hope Ministries, what we do is we work from two pillars. One is direct service and sustainability, and the other one is engagement and advocacy. And through our direct service and sustainability work, what we realize is that I cannot advocate to change laws. I cannot advocate to use my voice. I cannot advocate for myself if I don't have my basic human rights met, which would be food, shelter, and a job, or access to an equitable opportunity. And so we have 6 programs. We have Hope House, our safe housing space for women and girls who are coming home from prison and jail, one in the Bronx, one in New Orleans. We also have our Angel Food Project, which is a partnership with Instacart and supermarkets like Fairway, Wegmans, Costco, and others, where we give out fresh bags of donations of food 7 days a week, 365 days a year for families who are impacted by incarceration and now those impacted by COVID. We also have our Pathways for Equity program, which is a partnership with Virgin Unite, where we're asking corporations to bring fellows who are impacted by incarceration into their companies so they learn what corporate America is like, what opportunities that they can have outside of just, a regular entry-level position, more decision-making positions of people who have the lived experience. And then from the fellowship, they'll actually get hired in full-time employment with benefits and great other opportunities. And then on our engagement and advocacy, which I'm super excited is where AT&T is supporting us, is making sure that we are actually telling the stories through our Faces of Women in Prison program, where women are being trained in order to use their voice, in order to change policy, in order to give recommendations to the things that we need to do to end incarceration and poverty in our communities, specifically in New York. And then through the graduation, this class we have right now, we have 25 women. We graduated last time 11. And with this support, we are going to have an incredible graduation. And why not, for us, do it with a huge and leading technology partner like AT&T for communications. And so we are honored to have been thought of as it relates to the work that we're doing in that particular program and our Epic Ambassadors movement, where we're teaching women and girls how to draft and write legislation, not only impacted, but those who are presently incarcerated, in order to change the things that are happening in their region. But as we know, as it relates to criminal justice reform and things in New York, because of my work also as a senior advisor in New Yorkers United for Justice, looking at what women and families actually need through the committee of the work that we do that I lead with Erin Haney there, making sure that we are getting women out on parole, but making sure that the needs that they have are actually attended to, because the needs of women and children are very, very different. And so I actually want to give us some time, and I would like Amy also to talk about this partnership and just the role of corporate social responsibility in community-based organizations.
Well, absolutely. And Topeka, thank you so much. It's been a blessing to my life and to all of my colleagues to get to know you, and for the generosity of your time and spirit to share your story with all of us. as we're on the social justice journey. And the work that you've done is so immense to help the community and women making this transition and their families. And we're just so grateful that you allowed us to be such a small part of that. So thank you so much. Thank you. And yeah, thank you so much for asking that question. You know, AT&T has been committed to New York's communities, low income communities and communities in need and communities of color for many years. And we've really focused on bringing STEAM education, so education in technology and in the arts, to low income communities, communities of color, communities in need, not only in New York City, but Buffalo, Albany, Long Island, everywhere in between. And so this type of training these communities might not otherwise receive, and it allows youth in our state to pursue careers in college readiness, in technology careers, and also diversifying our workforce and hoping that this training will allow them to enter fields in technology. For example, over the last decade that we've been doing this work, we've contributed over $10 million to programs connecting youth in need with this specialized training, exposing them to careers and all the opportunities that technology can hold and bring to their lives. And hopefully our workforce is getting more and more diverse all the time as a result of these efforts. But what happened at AT&T, and I think to all of us, was that the pandemic and the tragic killing of George Floyd and too many others that was brought to the surface this summer, it really laid bare how much work we have to do to get to the roots of systemic racism and search for better outcomes for all and more equal justice for all. And at AT&T, we felt that as individuals, as communities, and as a company, that we had a mandate to double down and make a commitment to social justice. So in response, we expanded the philanthropy that we're already doing for our communities in New York, but we really added with your help, with help of folks doing amazing work in social justice already for years and years. You helped educate us and lead us to a direction where we could broaden and expand that investment into support programs that are working in social justice. And plus, we also doubled down on those programs for youth in need in communities of color.
Well, that's incredible, the work that you all have done and continue to do in New York specifically, but as we know beyond. And the critical part that corporations actually play in this work, right? When I think about support and I think about funding and I think about access and opportunity, so often community-based organizations are led to only work with foundations, right? And foundations and at what level of support. And sometimes because the foundations are really restricted to who they can give to, how much they can give, and what the metrics are that they're requesting from that, can really, really be difficult for new organizations, startup businesses, and things of that nature. And so I think for us, learning about corporate social responsibility for me this year and saying to myself, how do we begin to diversify our portfolio? How do we begin to work with corporations to be able to lift up the messaging, key messaging around the things that are happening in the community? Because to your point, with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, whom still hasn't gotten justice, and all of the other people, specifically people of color, that are not only users of these services or consumers of the services, but we also would like to share in how we changing the trajectory, how we getting this messaging out, and how we working with corporations, not only to begin to support, again, funding ways through the organizations, but also through opportunities and sharing platforms as this nature. What would you say, or what would you ask some of your fellow corporate citizens, right? What should they do? How can they get involved in helping to support community-based organizations, specifically around social justice movements and around providing opportunities for more equity?
Thanks, Topeka. Thanks for the opportunity to answer that question. And I hope that corporations follow AT&T's lead. We started off very simply by listening. We knew we had a lot to learn. And Obviously I mentioned your generosity. You were so helpful to us. We spent time talking with you, talking with New Yorkers United for Social Justice. We spent time talking with elected officials who have a long history in working in social justice policy and legislation. We talked with organizations that we ended up working with, like yours, Ladies of Hope Ministry, with out in Buffalo and in New York City, the Osborne Association. We spoke with the governor's office on reentry and reintegration into the community, and with Secretary of State Rossana Rosado to learn more about challenges New Yorkers face when making reentry. And for us, for at AT&T New York, we landed on focusing our social justice work on helping New Yorkers make successful and safe reentry and reintegration into the community. And that was a good fit for us. We also set out programs, and I hope companies do their homework and find what fits best for them, and also using the skill set that they have. For us, it's technology. And so we sought out programs that, like you mentioned, help with communicating and help telling a story. And for example, with some organizations, for example, Center for Community Alternatives out in Syracuse, we deliver education on how to use a smartphone, which is really important, and computer skills for those making reentry into the community who may have not had that for years and years. So we take the skill set that we have and where our interest lies and partner that with how we can affect social change. So companies will do their homework and do a lot of listening, and then talk to the experts in the field like yourself and hear stories of and learn about where the needs are. We also, I'll note, partnered with the Business Roundtable, a national organization, and AT&T. I'm so proud of the work we did. AT&T, under the leadership of our chairman, Randall Stevenson, and now John Stanky, led the Business Roundtable on a new way for businesses to think, and we led a new initiative on public policy to get involved at the federal level in social justice and police reforms. And also there was a natural fit for that to be moved to the state level too. So I'm so proud of the work that AT&T has done to build these principles, and not only on our alone as AT&T, but as a whole corporate community in the United States.
That is so incredible. It just always drives me to thinking about, the why it's so important, and that, in all of us, as an effort for all of us to make substantial change in this country, we all need to work together. And the fact that, again, so often, people look at like corporate structures as it's like us and them, especially those of us that are doing work in the communities. And what I have learned through working with you and other corporations here recently, that it allows us to build, scale, and expand more quickly. It taps us into markets, not only in the one that we are, but that of beyond. It allows access to communities where we typically wouldn't be able to get into. And it provides opportunities for change on so many different levels. And so, when I think about, even what can employees do, and how can employees of the corporation and other corporations get involved? What are some of your suggestions around that as well?
Well, in addition to just doing a lot of listening, we've also had great meetings with our corporate colleagues who have seen the work that AT&T has done and said, how do I get involved? And we've shared that insight with them about listening and what was the right path for AT&T. And we're so thrilled to be able to introduce them to policymakers, to leaders like yourself, talk about the work that we've done and help them find the right fit. So, my advice would be to partner with organizations who are doing work in the social justice space and seek ways to expand the philanthropy and build upon what you're already doing. So to speak, I'm wondering, have you seen an increase in corporations looking to support Ladies of Hope ministry programs or other social justice programs? Have you seen them reaching out? Have you seen a change since this summer? Absolutely.
Again, I had mentioned a little earlier that, for us, it was a pull, as a new organization, especially in criminal justice reform. A lot of times you're guided in order to go into a certain space. And a lot of it is through foundation funding. You know, they're like, okay, these are the people that care. These are the people that understand what's happening in the community. But from all the things that have been visible, and I say visible because it is through, you know, the recordings on cell phones and things that people are actually, all people are having an opportunity to see it. And it's been so in your face that there's no denying the injustices and inequities that are happening in this country, that corporations have begun to step up. And partly because there is, not only is there responsibility to the employees that the corporations actually do employ, but also to the communities that they actually serve and provide services to. And so when everything started happening, and there are organizations that were really elevating key messaging, and advocates that were elevating key messaging around the country, people were reaching out. Corporations were reaching out. And then what happened, began to be a shift where what I noticed, a lot of philanthropy or foundation philanthropy, they were like, okay, we have to support racial justice initiatives. And we're no longer looking at criminal justice. And I'm like, well, wait, they're all intersectional, you know? How are we just shifting, funding from one way to another? And when you are leading an organization that is quickly growing and scaling, that you cannot depend specifically on one pool of funding, because what happens when the powers that be, the chairmen and the people who actually support that fund, decide that they want to, or their idea of the way to solve the problem changes, then your access to those resources do. And so being able to tap into corporate funding has been critical to our growth and expansion. And some of the corporations that you would think would never, be in these spaces are. And it's been exciting because, for me, from a person who's running a nonprofit organization and even having to, do all of the I say the backflips of all the reportings and things that foundation funding require, it's very different with corporate support. Corporate support really looks at us as the experts and really says, what do you need? And okay, this is what we can do. And like, go off, be merry and do your work and let us know how we can support additionally. And that's very, very different. It takes away the stressors that we have as leaders in this organization that are not only, helping other people heal, but having to relive our traumas every single day. But it also helps to build again and grow in a way that allows us to have that still creativity and that control, and allows us to partner with experts like you in the fields that you're in that actually will support us in getting those messages out. So, when I first was introduced to you and we were talking and I was just sharing about my experience, it was always for me about how do I support and bring new opportunities into a space when we don't have them? And to be able to tap into AT&T in this way, where the message, because it's all about the messaging. We know from legislative advocacy, from lobbying efforts, that it is the key messages of the people that have lived the experience that actually have changed the laws. But it was because people can relate to those people that we were able to do that, and to have such a communications powerhouse to be able to support us in getting that message out is critical. And so when you think about policy, you think about things on the state and federal level, and you understand, as I'm beginning to learn, how, corporations have to lobby to get things done too. I had a whole conversation this weekend in Miami with with a dear friend, but also a supporter of the organization, who talked about their business and how, they had to do lobbying efforts and go to the Capitol and talk about things as it relates to even how they're taxing, the consumer on the end. And, it's like, for me, learning these things, but I also always see where there's opportunities. And the fact that with corporations, which is so interesting, but really critical to the work, that they understand more so than the way foundations have been doing the work, that you have to look at all of these problems in the community: racism, genderism, misogyny, the lack of respect to gender identity, sexism, all of these things, that you have to look at them as one issue, right? That they're not separate issues, where you're looking at police reform and you're looking at all these, criminal justice reform, you're looking at equity, you're looking at poverty, you're looking at all these things that we don't need to say, all right, I'm only going to do this and this. It's not or, it's and. And where can you, depending on where you sit, actually take a bite out of this? But that's by pouring into the organizations that you feel strongly and connected to that can actually help to elevate the common goal. And that to me is to, bring more equity into our communities, change these systems of oppression and racism, and provide a community and state in New York that we can all be proud
I agree. That's so important. And, looking back, 2020, I'm sure you'll agree, was a year like no other. So momentous for Ladies of Hope Ministry, for yourself personally, victories and challenges. And, you've seen new corporate donors, and philanthropy come to your doors throughout all these changes. I'm wondering if we can look ahead a little bit and what you think is next for Ladies of Hope Ministry, and what you would recommend corporations do in the future down the road, given what's next, to help better support your mission at Ladies of Hope Ministry.
Thank you. So for us, it's all about, like I said, ending poverty and incarceration of women and girls. And to do that, that's a huge responsibility and a huge feat, right? But I'm a huge thinker, and I know that we can do it by creating opportunities, equitable opportunities for all people, and for me, the way we're growing and scaling is looking into key places in the country where there are lack of resources and opportunity for women, where incarceration rates are high and are continuing to rise. So strategically, we're looking at the existing data. And then what we're doing is we're scaling into those places. So right now we're in New York, we're scaling to New Jersey, we're scaling to Baltimore, Philly, Miami, we're already in New Orleans, and wherever there's opportunities that come up, I'm always, okay, who do I know? Who can be a key partner? How can we make sure that we're getting the messaging out? As it relates to our programming, for me, corporations can support. We have 6 programs. One of the most exciting projects that we're working on is our Hope Hub. And that's to bring all of the resources into one place. So people who say are on probation or parole, they don't have to run around the city, from east to west, north to south to get to appointments, whether it's through probation and parole, whether it's through, some of their housing needs, it's through needing access to food, job, workforce development, educational access and resources for entrepreneurial training and development, all of that, mental health treatment, all of that will be in one building. And so right now we're looking at property in Baltimore, we're looking at property in Brooklyn, in Harlem, and looking in places where we can create these community centers, but we'll have corporate partners who will be offering that right inside the community. When I remember coming home from prison, and I remember being at H&M. My friends took me to H&M to buy me some stuff. And it was the H&M downtown on 34th Street, which is like the largest one in the world, I think, or the country or whatever. But anyway, so they bought me like some shirts and stuff, and it was like $9.99 was one shirt. And I remember going in Harlem where my parents were and where I was staying when I first came home, and H&M was on 125th Street. And I go there, and the same shirt was $14.99. And I said to the guy, well, why is it more expensive here? Down where you have tourism, where, the cost of living is even more expensive, where people can actually afford to buy $14.99. Why is it higher in Harlem, where, economically that people are not, the people are struggling very differently than that, on 34th Street. And they were like, well, each store will price adjust based on the community that they're in. And I said, well, that's not cool, and then I was like, that just didn't make sense to me. But the more I started digging, I was like, the problem is that so often we only go to certain places in our community because we don't understand that there's access to things outside of it. But what if we bring that same access in the community that creates more equity so that stores and corporations can't price gouge, right? Like we remember even what was happening with the masks. All of a sudden you were paying $5 for one mask. I remember that. And I was like, this is just bananas. But we'll go other places and they will be $1 for, $5 for $1. And so it's like, really, how do we give people the things that they need? And I know that, I've been blessed to be able to see the world and all of its variations because of my access. I always say, like, when I was in prison, I was privileged. I had visits every week, if not every other week. I had, my friends and family sent money in, and I had like the highest paying job when I was there, which wasn't much. It was $100 a month. So let's be clear, but it was much more than the $5 a month that some sisters got. And it has been a huge responsibility for me because I understand that coming from parents who are entrepreneurs and growing up and being able to see the world in a very different lens, through a different lens, that I am able to dream the way that I can and implement the things that I can because of that access. And for us, it's being able to provide that same access for other people. If you can't see it, you can't dream it. And so that's why it's so important to work with you all, because people see communications, telling stories, give people the ability to see and dream. And once they see it, then they can say they can have it for them, which is why we do our Hope House the way we do, which is why we're partnering with corporations in the way that we are, which is why we're encouraging other nonprofits to do the same. That I think partnerships like this will allow just the way the philanthropy is moving and funding is moving is going to change because of how corporate social responsibility is now being more bold in the space and making bolder partnerships with organizations like ours. So I'm excited. I know we have so much to do, but I'm excited to build this relationship with you, Robin and Amy. You have been incredible partners, and we just started. So I can't wait to see where we go, how we build, and how we scale together. And excited to be able to provide, access more into the community and see what other things that we can work on to make sure that our communities are enlightened, but also informed about the things that AT&T is doing.
Thank you, Topeka. And we're just in awe and so grateful and impressed with how you used your experience and your dreams and your life experience to really make the lives of our fellow New Yorkers better and increase social justice outcomes for women and their families in our home in New York State. And it's really exciting to hear that you're expanding into some other major cities across the country. It sounds like I've got some introductions to do.
Yes.
Between you and my AT&T colleagues, which I will do with great pleasure. So that's really exciting, and I'm just so impressed by your ability to dream and take that dream and make outreach to those in need.
Thank you
so much for that.
So I'm going to jump in and wrap it up, but I do just want to say I think I echo Amy. We're very excited about this too, and I do think that this is such a good partnership. Because we also think that access and opportunity are critical for people. That is part of what underlies our funding for education, for STEAM education, and now the expansion into social justice initiatives. And I just want to say we so appreciate the time that you've given us on this conversation and previously to educate us. And we really do just want to listen and learn and support your organization as it grows. This is a really wonderful partnership for us. So thank you both for your time today and for your thoughts.
Oh, thank you so much, Rob. And again, I think, I echo both of you. This is a great honor to us as it is for you. So you're not alone in that. To be able to dream is something incredible, right? But be able to realize your dreams is even more incredible. And it is the help of you, AT&T. And, this 2020 was difficult for us as an organization, but it was corporations really that stepped in and really got us where we're going. And it was the idea of it is all of us, not just some of us, right? It's all of our responsibility. If we want to see a better New York, we want to see a better country, we want to see a better world. And so I'm just, again, really humbled that you all thought enough of our work and also to help to pour into our work in order to give women and girls an opportunity to transform their lives. So I thank you. I thank everyone for tuning in at AT&T and Network of Ladies of Hope Ministries. And, please look forward to all the great things we're going to do in New York and beyond together.
Absolutely. Take good care.
Thank you. Bye.